The sun is going down over hostile ground, and you've already marched the better part of a day with 60 pounds of gear cutting into your shoulders. Your feet are pulp. Every part of you wants to drop where you stand. And that's exactly when the order comes down the line, and it's not the order you're praying for. You don't get to rest. First, you have to build a fortress out of nothing before dark. And once it's built, you still won't really sleep, because in the Roman army, the night in enemy territory was its own kind of war, and losing it could get you killed by the men sleeping next to you. Here's what separated the Romans from almost every army before them. They did not just flop down at the end of a march and hope for the best. It is well documented that a Roman army on campaign never halted, not even for a single night, without building a proper fortified camp. Every evening, from scratch, even if they were going to tear it down and walk away at dawn. Think about that level of discipline. You are exhausted, you are deep in enemy land, and the rule is iron. No man sleeps until the camp exists. So you pick up a tool instead of lying down. The whole legion fans out and starts digging a ditch around the entire perimeter, throwing the earth inward to raise a rampart. And those wooden stakes you've been cursing, the ones lashed to your pack that have been jabbing your spine for 20 miles, those go on top of the rampart, driven in to make a palisade. You weren't carrying firewood all day. You were carrying the walls of tonight's fort on your back. By the time the light is gone, a fortified camp has risen out of bare ground, laid out in the same rigid grid every single time, the same roads, the same gates, the same spot for every tent, so that even in pitch dark, a soldier could find his way. The sameness was the point. It meant no thinking, just muscle memory, even when you were dead on your feet. Now you can go to your tent. Don't get excited. Your tent is a small leather thing that smells of grease, mildew, and the bodies of the 7 other men you share it with. 8 soldiers to a tent, your little squad. The men you march with, eat with, and will die beside. You lie down shoulder to shoulder on hard ground in the dark, in a wooden box of a camp surrounded by people who want you dead. And this is where the real ordeal begins, because the Romans did not trust the night, and they built a machine to fight it. Listen to it for a moment, the camp at night. The leather walls creaking, men coughing, snoring, muttering in their sleep. Pack animals shifting and stamping somewhere in the dark. The crackle and spit of the watchfires, and beyond the rampart, nothing. A black wall of countryside that could be empty or could be filling up with men who know this land far better than you do. The smell is sweat and wet leather and wood smoke and the open latrine trench that thousands of men are sharing. You close your eyes in that and you tell your body to sleep, fast, because you do not know how long you've got before the hand comes for your shoulder. The night was carved up into 4 watches. Not one long sleep. 4 shifts, and the guards were swapped out 4 times before dawn. Which means your night doesn't belong to you. At some point, a hand shakes you awake in the cold and the dark, and it's your turn to stand on that rampart and stare out into nothing, listening for the snap of a twig that means a few thousand angry locals are about to come over the wall. You stand there straining your eyes until your relief arrives, and only then do you crawl back to steal another fragment of broken, shivering sleep before the horns drag everyone up at dawn. That's not rest. That's a series of naps interrupted by terror, night after night after night. And the Romans, being Romans, turned even the password into a system. Stay with me, because this part is genuinely clever. The watchword for the night was written on a small wooden tablet, and specially chosen men carried it around to every unit, so the whole camp shared one secret word. Why? So that anyone moving through the camp in the dark could be challenged. Speak the word, you're a brother. Fumble it, and you're an intruder. And an intruder inside the walls at night is the stuff of nightmares, because it means the enemy is already in among the tents. Every shadow had to prove it belonged, so picture your night now. You marched all day. You built a fort with your bare hands. You're crammed into a stinking tent with 7 other men, and you're going to be hauled out into the cold at least once to guard a wall in hostile dark while everyone's life depends on you not nodding off. You'd think staying awake would be the easy part. It wasn't. Men are exhausted. Eyes get heavy. And that brings us to the reason Roman sentries fought so hard to stay awake, and it is grim. If a Roman soldier fell asleep on watch or abandoned his post, the punishment was called the fustuarium. And it was not a flogging, not extra duties, not a fine. It was death. But not death from the officers. Here's the horror of it. The condemned man was set upon and beaten to death with clubs and stones by the very soldiers he had been guarding. His own tent mates. The men whose lives he'd put at risk by closing his eyes. The logic was as cold as it was effective. You failed the men beside you, so the men beside you are the ones who end you. There was no crueler way to make every single soldier understand that the man on watch was holding the whole camp's life in his hands. Take a second with that. The reason you don't sleep on guard isn't fear of a whip. It's the knowledge that if your eyes close, the friend you shared bread with at sundown might be ordered to cave your skull in by morning. That's the kind of discipline that conquered the known world. It ran on terror pointed inward as much as outward, and it didn't stop at the individual. If a whole unit broke and ran in battle, or showed mass cowardice, the army could turn to decimation, where the unit was divided into groups of 10 and forced to draw lots, and the loser in each group was beaten to death by the other 9. Same brutal principle, scaled up. Your worst enemy in the Roman army was sometimes the Roman army. So no, when a legionary slept in enemy territory, it wasn't really sleep. It was a few stolen hours on hard dirt, in a fort he'd just built with bleeding hands, broken up by guard shifts in the freezing dark, with the understanding that a single lapse could turn his own friends into his executioners. The romance of the marching legion, the eagles, and the gleaming armor, all of it sat on top of men who were quietly running on a debt of sleep they never got to pay back. And the worst part? They did it again the next night, and the night after that. Tear down the fort at dawn, march all day, build a brand new fort by dusk, sleep in shards, stand the watch, and repeat for an entire campaign that could last years. The Roman war machine wasn't just swords and shields. It was thousands of bone-tired men digging the same ditch every evening, guarding the same wall every night, kept in line by the knowledge of what waited for anyone who finally, understandably, let his eyes fall shut. If you'd survive a night in that camp, stick around, because next time we're climbing into another part of the Roman world that looked a lot more glorious from the outside than it ever felt from the inside.